Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the MHA Arc Review podcast series thingy that we do here. I'm Oceaniz, and I am, as always, joined by IanWaffles, my dear friend, who is the man with all things MHA. How are you doing, Ian?
I'm doing great. Wow, is this a new record for us? Did we actually release a video before the next ice age? What is happening?
Yeah, right. Did we manage to do another one of these before Hori changes the entire identity of the series again?
I did not think about that. That's got to be really fun for anyone re-listening to this, where it's like, wow, they just change moods from video to video.
Well, so does Hori. So
does Hori.
I mean,
Fun
you know
time.
what? Realistically, it's entirely possible that like by the next one we'll be giving the manga like glowing praise if you know if the whole editor shit is actually true.
Which will just be a crazy thing and a half once the series is over and we can look back in retrospect. But today we're looking even further back. What are we talking about today, Mr. Ocean Man?
We are talking about the license exam arc, the one that happens right after Kamino and including Deku versus Bakugo Part 2. And right off the bat, we will be talking about this arc as people who know the future and who've read all the way up to the most recent chapter. And we'll reference that information. So, spoiler warning if you are reading along, I guess. Yeah, for everyone else, we will be going from basically the ultimate move chapter all the way to the introduction of the big three, which
Indeed.
includes the license exam. It includes Deku versus Bakugo. It includes the introduction of Overhaul, which I'd completely forgotten about that's there. And the introduction of Mirio, the
Yeah,
constant
which
thorn in my ass.
Yeah, which honestly, I think we could probably just save those two for the next video because there's no real
Yes.
reason to be like, what do you think of Overhaul standing in the alleyway? What do you think the future of his character is going to be, Mr. Ocean Man?
Actually, I have one thought about Overhaul in this arc, which is that wow, Hori drew him really young in his first appearance. He does not look that baby ever again.
He's a baby man. Yeah, indeed. Well, I know it's even funnier in the anime because they make like his beak look like a brick hanging off his face, and you're like, what is happening? Are you okay, sir? Can you
Uh-huh.
breathe?
But anyway, before we get into it, Ian, would you like to plug your channel as usual?
Yeah, so my name is IanWaffles. You can find me on Twitter and YouTube. I make analysis videos about just pretty much any anime or game that I'm interested in at the time. I have two MHA videos, one on Overhaul and one on Airy, which will be very helpful. That's your required reading for next week's video. So
Homework.
but I still think they're pretty dope because of the editing. So yeah, definitely check them out. I still stand by a lot of those points. So if after this you still got a hankering for MHA and you want a sneak peek into my thoughts on Airy and Overhaul going forward, check out those videos. But otherwise, yeah, let's get to it.
All right. So the license exam arc starts, of course, with the whole ultimate move section, where we get to see sort of our kids deal with the responsibility of being marketable in the My Hero world. This section, what do you have any sort of immediate thoughts on it, like quick fire ones?
Um, I think it's fun. Like I really like seeing all the kids kind of getting really hyped to come up with moves. And I kind of just like, things like Ida's characterization of him just being like, they're like, all right, we're going to make special moves. And he's like, question, why are we making special moves? What is the reason for this specific requirement? And they're like, Ida, shut up, please. Like, and then, there's fun with Hatsume and stuff like that. Like just in general, it's just kind of fun hanging out with these kids. And I kind of like seeing that continue on from the room competition. It wasn't just solely focused on Deku. And of course, All Might being adorable is fantastic with his teaching guide for dummies book.
Yes. That's a
And I
really
think
fun gag.
and I think it's absolutely hysterical that one of Kirishima's defining moments in Overhaul, where he's like, "Don't just stand there. Don't do the parlor tricks. Move like a bulldozer," is in like a tiny little panel without even a word bubble, where it's just scribbled on there as advice from All Might.
Uh-huh.
it's like that comes back as like this huge defining moment.
Yeah, no. I mean, I feel like this is such a great time to sort of just hang out with these characters and get to see them as kids. Like, I crack up every time Kaminari goes on about, oh yeah, I want to have like a lightning sword, despite it making no sense for his quirk, like whatsoever, that he should be able to do it. Because it's like, yeah, it's such a great reminder. These are just kids. They would want like dumb video game moves, and they get to make them. And I really do like it. I like how much also this arc, like, or this section, lays the groundwork for a lot of the combat styles we get to see later on in the series. Like,
Mhm.
Kaminari cloaking his body with dark shadow. Not Kaminari, Tokoyami.
Tokoyami.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and actually, now that I think about it, all of these upgrades are also have the benefit of being really cool. Like, I can't think of one that is like lame that we're getting to see here.
And they get little cool little costume upgrades. Like Kirishima has
Yes.
like the little shoulder guards now, and he has like his outfit. And then obviously Kaminari has his dope gun, his
Hmm.
like wrist launch, his Yu-Gi-Oh deck launcher. Uh,
Hmm.
um, but yeah, no, so this is something I've been thinking about for a while with like MHA is like, all right, because for a lot of people this is where like they're just like, yep, Camino definitely was the peak because now we're doing this garbage school stuff. Um,
Hmm.
and from like, and I've always thought about it. It's like, yeah, okay, no, I understand. Like, we just got this really big high, but for me, I'm trying to kind of like figure out like why am I okay with like this plot just kind of like coming to a halt and being like, all right, time to like get our driver's license. When again, we've talked about this before.
Hmm.
Why not just say, all right, guys, with All Might, with this crazy stuff going on, all students are going to be you are basically forced to like go work at an agency, and then boom, we just go to overhaul, right?
Hmm.
You could just say
Yeah.
like semi martial law, you know,
Yeah.
yeah. But it's like I don't know, no, like I signed on to this series so that I could see them go to a school to learn to be heroes. So I guess to me, maybe where for some people they thought like that's where it's going to start, and we will grow past that, and then we will get to the good stuff. To me, it was always something where whenever the villain stuff was happening, I'm always like, oh, but let's go back to school. I want to see how these kids just something as simple as Tokoyami being like, "This is my new cool power," and he gives it like a really complicated name, and then
Hmm.
Midnight's like, "All right, that's fine, but you need to make it like easy to say." And then he's like,
Hmm.
"Okay, got it." And then when they get to the test, he's like, "Abyssal black body," and Deku's like, "Whoa, it's so cool and easier to say." And like, I just like that I got to see Tokuyami come up with a stupid name for his shadow cloak, and then
Hmm.
that was a part of his progression into being a cool hero. And I don't know, I miss stuff like this in the story, and I wouldn't, as much as to spoil our or my opinions on this arc is just kind of being like, yeah, it's fine.
Hmm.
I would still enjoy reading this every time I could go through the story because I like these moments a lot.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think it's also just one of those arcs that allows us to actually have that time with the students, right? Because you have things like Kamino and Overhaul, you're moving at an insane pace throughout like the story, and then you get to arcs like these where we really just get to sit down and be like, hey, look, these are kids. They have their own priorities, their own like personalities and things that they care about. And even though it's very small, I think this is instrumental overall in making the cast feel like characters, right? Like, it's just good practice as a writer to have your characters have these like interactions between each other. And also another thing that I like about the ultimate moves section personally, and this sort of goes back into sort of the more low key parts of My Hero, is just how reasonable it is. Because yeah, in a world where heroes are heavily marketed, you would need like a video gamey ultimate move, and one that, in Tokoyami's case, needs to be easy to be pronounced and like memorable. And I just always appreciated things like that, where the story acknowledges that it's not just a battle shonen that exists sort of in a vacuum, but it exists on the backdrop of a public that has opinions, that has preferences, that makes careers and breaks careers. And so that's whenever the series leans into that aspect, or used to lean into that aspect, I think that's when it really sort of flexed its own identity in a way that other series didn't do quite like that.
Well, especially probably in more of the uh, modern pop culture superhero genre. Because I'm sure there's, I mean, there's billions of superhero comics. So I'm sure someone's done something similar to this, taking into account the media. But like in terms of like pop culture, as far as like what does the normal public get out of superhero stories, I think that this was MHA's unique identity, was like taking into account that media presence.
Yeah, yeah.
The minutia of like what it mean, the things we take for granted from superheroes. And to your point about how that's kind of like when MHA is at its strongest, I think this arc is at its strongest when it is leaning in on that, because the whole point of this arc is that where they're in this test phase that is literally supposed to be designed to be a contrast to the way the world is, and then after that we will go out into the world again with the Twice story, with Endeavor, with all these things. So it's supposed to be a reflection in their schooling based on how the world is right now. So you get that contrast. But that's kind of long-term stuff in this arc. But I just thought that was a good thing to bring up because, yeah, I agree with you.
Mhm.
It's a really good part. But then there's, do you have any more smaller things, or do we want to get into the big thing?
Uh, well, okay. One other thing is I like how we get to see other people besides Aizawa and All Might teach. Like we get to see Ectoplasm teach Mina, and I like that his advice is actually good. That's my last
Yeah,
quick fire thought. Yeah, I
that,
like people being competent in MHA. That's cool.
specifically adults, I think.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that's a big one. Well, and then to one more ectoplasm point, I just like the part where Bakugo's training and he's like, "Ectoplasm, I killed you. Give me another one."
Yes, yes. That's a
That's good.
classic as well. But yeah.
But
So what's your big one?
so obviously, big Deku boy. So let's talk about him realizing that he has the feet. Um, and
Yes.
so to give some perspective on where I'm coming from this, when I first read this part of the manga, I had the book in my hand and I was reading through it. This will give you the, because I always say like I'm Deku, he's me. This is why I relate to him. But
Hmm.
especially in this moment, this was the most I related to him in the whole series. So I'm reading the book, and he's like, "Ugh, God, how, how am I going to use my punching power to punch people if I can't punch?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, Deku! Like this reality you live in is like an existential nightmare. How do you punch if you can't punch?" And so he's chilling, he's vibing, and then he goes, "Oh my gosh!" And he puts his hand on his head. He goes, "Wait, but can kick feet?" And like I kid you not, when he came to that realization, I had the book in my hand, I folded it, I put it down, and I put my hands on my own hand. I was like, "He's a genius."
Do you want to
um,
know the funniest part about that?
what's that?
I had the same experience. Because I read this. License Exam is the arc where I caught up to the manga, basically, like right around when License Exam was transitioning into Overhaul. And man, like at the time, this felt like and it still does. It felt like a really cool like way to progress your character. I just because the thing is, right, and I'm sorry if I'm like stealing some of your
No,
points.
you're fine. You're fine. I talk too much.
No, you talking a wonderful amount. But like what I liked about it is that it put me in Deku's shoes because I too had kept thinking of One for All as All Might's punching power. Um, and so both Full Cowling and Shoot Style, they both got me. They were both like, but what if he's not like All Might? I'm like, oh shit, what if
Oh
he
my
isn't?
gosh!
Yeah, no. So I totally understand you there. That was, I really did not empathize with like the whole memeing that went on with this moment because I'm like, yeah, no, that makes sense. Why are you being so mean to my boy?
Yeah, no, and well, and here's the thing, like, yeah, all that is correct, but yeah, it's just I don't know. It's one of those things where like it's another one of those micro progressions. It's like okay, Deku doesn't like. Oh, well, okay. To go back a little bit. So, for example, the doctor gave him like you get 2 or 3 more times, right? And
Hmm.
then so for like big punches, and then like he shows in his fight with Bakugo, he's like, but it doesn't mean I still can't normally punch at like 5%. And this is what made Deku feel so human to me and again relatable is he's like, dude, I don't even want to risk it. I don't care if this is a shonen and that the writer would let me get away with it. I just want to
Hmm.
put braces on my arms, even if I'm not going to punch with them. I just want to keep them safe, and I don't even want to punch with them because they're little brittle baby boys. So like that was like really relatable to me because like I'm someone who like yeah, like if you tell me like, oh, you can probably do like if I was sick or whatever, it's like, oh, you could probably do this amount. It's like, no, I'm just gonna rest completely until I'm better. I don't even want to risk it, you know?
Hmm.
And so that was another thing that just made Deku so cool to me was this idea of like it's not even like he's crippled now. It's just that he could be. He had this problem. He had this fear. He told his mom that he would try to protect his body better, and he's gonna stick with it. He's not gonna take these risks of, well, I could still kind of punch, so like I'll just promise not to do it, you know? And
Hmm.
it's like no. Instead, he expands his horizons, and he comes up with shoot style, and kicking is objectively cooler than punching. And if you disagree, I will punch you. So
Well,
because I'm
that
bad at kicking.
well, the thing is that, and also I just like how shoot style and full cowl together sort of transform what you think Deku should become. Because when you first see All Might, like at the start of the series, and he's this hulking behemoth, and he gives his power to Deku. I remember when season 1 first came out, everyone was talking about how in the final season, Deku is gonna be basically Deku head on top of All Might's body, right?
Yeah, that
And
was
it
great.
just
Yeah.
felt like where it was going. He was going to get stronger, more powerful. And I like how the series, like with every micro progression, as you said, like progresses Deku away from that and more towards like a speedster. Like Hatsume even says it, like you need to become like a speed type hero if you really want to use kicks. Because that's when you're going to be able to really use your momentum. And then Deku's like, oh, wait, but I'm using full cowling, which already does that. It already turns me into more of a speedster than a powerhouse. And Hatsume is like, oh, wonderful. Half the progress already done. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yes, sir.
Yeah. And
Um,
also like we don't sorry, I'll let you finish. Go ahead.
well, I was just going to say that as someone who was around before this was animated, also, I want to put it on record. Basically, no one was like, oh, Deku, why don't you use your feet? It was only after it was animated where people are like, oh, this was such an obvious thing. Why didn't you think of it? My
Yeah.
my my brother, you didn't think of it.
Yeah.
I didn't think of it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No, and so yeah, that even rereading it, I still got like I think I literally got chills reading it when he was like, "Oh, I figured it out." I'm like, "Yes, yes, let's kick people in the face. Let's go." And I like just from like a purely spectacle perspective, Deku kicking is so cool. Like the way he like Hori elongates his leg to like extreme ridiculous proportions whenever he breaks the rock that's gonna
Uh-huh.
crush All Might. Like it looks so cool. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's great. I love his new gauntlets, like the ones that just kind of go up to his arms. Those look sick. I like
Hmm.
the little moment where he's like, "No, I like my stupid little outfit. My mom gave it to me."
Yes, yes.
That's great. And I also really like it's a very underrated moment, but I really love when he jumps in front of All Might and All Might thinks back to the moment where Deku says, like, "Could someone like me be a hero like you?"
Hmm.
And then he kicks the rock, and it's like, and he smiles or whatever, and he's like, "Oh wow, look how like look how far you've come," without saying, "Look how far you've come."
Yeah.
And that was dope. That was great. Deku's the best. I love him. And also, uh, man, Bakugo, what the heck, dude? You almost killed All Might.
Yes. Well, as we find out later in this arc, he do be thinking about whether or not he ended All Might.
Yeah,
So
he do be worried.
yeah, so maybe this was actually like clever foreshadowing. This was just Hori
I
cooking.
Yeah, I think it was. Like, I was gonna mention that. I'm like, I think that is genuinely like whether he intended it or not, it's there. I think
Yeah.
that's a genuinely a good like connection point of like, oh, I almost killed crippled All Might too. No.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course, I mean, this also leads to a very good All Might moment where he's like, "Oh, yeah, I'm the guy people worry about now." Hmm.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, and I also again, this is just I have a big preference in shonen when adults are treated like as adults and they seem like people who actually have a life behind them and have like learned how to deal with various situations. So I really like in MHA when adults are sad or like under stress, you can see that they're taking it differently than the kids. Whereas, All Might doesn't really get all up in his head about it. He realizes it and he just has this quiet moment of like, damn, that kind of sucks. And we don't really hear about it until he has another quiet moment with Aizawa later on during the potluck. Um, And I just like that. I like it when shonen treats adults as adults because as a shonen, as it is targeted to young teens who may feel pretty rebellious towards the adults in their lives, I think it's easy to fall into this tendency of just making adults wrong and nasty and childish because the kids have to like oppose them.
Well,
So anytime,
or worst of all, incompetent.
yes, yes. So anytime my hero like avoids that pitfall, I'm always happy for it. I always think that that's so cool.
Yeah, well, and especially as adult readers ourselves, we can obviously still empathize with with the kid characters, but that is that kind of idea of like, all right, but I'm like Aizawa, in this story, I'm the tired man, so like,
Mhm.
please be competent, Aizawa.
Yes,
So
yes.
you like seeing that. It's a nice little it's like, okay, now that the character I get to put myself into is not a fool.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's good. But yeah, no, that whole section's good. It's cute. I like it. But yeah, you wanna one last thing I'll say is that the anime ruined the boobs joke. It was much funnier in the manga because in the anime they're like the Hatsume falls on Deku and then Ochako's like in the anime she's like boobs like but in the manga it's way better because it just says boobs period, so it's more like boobs.
Yes. Also, in the volume, I love how Hori is like, "Oh, chapter 100 ends with a boob gag. Damn, I must have been tired."
I must have been tired.
No, like, no, my man, that was no accident. Stop lying.
Who drew that? Who couldn't have been me? Who could have let this happen?
Who could make this gag twice?
Oh no!
Um,
And she
but
got
yeah,
bigger.
well, as everyone did in Hori's new art style. Have you seen
This is very true.
Ochako?
Oh, I've seen Ochako. Let's move on.
Okay. um, no, one last thing before we move on. Quite, with shoot style, I am so sad that the whole thing that his like souls do like a double impact. I'm so sad that has never come up again
Yeah,
outside of
it's
like
so
one
dope.
time.
Yeah, it's used in Overhaul, which is the peak of the series. So of course it keeps it, but everything else.
Yeah, I keep forgetting that that's a thing even. But yeah, no, his souls have like this mechanism where once he kicks something, they do like a double impact.
Well,
And it just
well,
doesn't come up again.
yeah, well, and it's cool too, I think, because it just kind of allows for like it's basically like a pseudo 20% kick at that point. Which again,
Yeah.
this is a thing underappreciated, I think, about MHA is that it's a series where like it's not just like the Robins that use gadgets. Like no, the superheroes, the people with the powers, they have to augment their powers too and use these gadgets to make themselves better. Which we'll talk about more specific stuff when we get to the actual test. But I just thought, like, again, reading it, I'm like, oh wow, we can customize our superhero with cool gadgets. Like that's fun,
Mhm. Yeah, it is
so,
cool.
so I think that this section of the manga really leans into that. I think what you had kind of said is like this video game aspect of like, yeah, we can mix in like sure it's always fun to like come up with like what could they do with their powers, but then when you come
Mhm.
with this extra thing of like you can put gadgets and attachments and stuff, it's like oh man, that's even cooler. And
Mhm.
we
Yeah.
can come up with their stupid flying kick-a-pow attacks. So
Mhm. Yeah.
so
Uh,
yeah, it's fun.
yeah, and then we move on sort of into like the what is it? Like sort of the introduction into the license exams, which obviously starts with the very cute scene of Ochako like floating in the air and be like, "No, love? What's that?" Then she looks out the window, she's like, "Oh, that's what's that."
That's what's love. Um,
Yeah.
no, I'll that's cute, but I also really like this is something that I always wanted with when Deku was learning Black Whip
Mhm.
in the Endeavor Agency. Just small tangent is that so that whole arc is about how Deku needs to learn to control this power, and Endeavor's like you need to do this, and then we have a chapter that is a montage of them training, and you see Bakugo and Todoroki doing the thing they're told. And what is
Mhm.
Deku doing in every single panel? He is just running. Deku, that is not what he told you to do. And then so at the very end, when he gets a stupid power up, it doesn't feel like anything. But then we compare that to license exam. This is all I needed. This is all I wanted. Just show me a scene where he's outside and he's super sweaty thinking about Ida. He's like, oh, Ida kick real good. I want to kick real good. And then you go, yes, you're done. That's all I needed. If he kicks good next time, I saw it. That's all I want.
Yeah, like literally just set it up. It makes everything more worth it and more impactful because you give it sort of this. It's like you give it a wick to the explosive, and then when you pull the trigger, you actually have like a line of progression that the reader can be like, "Oh yeah, I saw him do the thing, and now he's doing the thing better. Let's go."
Let's
Um,
go. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
I mean, we've talked about it in the joint training arc review, where every power up Deku has, even shoot style, where I think it's fairly condensed, gets these like moments where he's just exercising, he's just training, and then the six quirks just kind of don't at all.
No, and it's
Uh,
terrible and awful.
yeah, I mean, the only one that gets it is float as a flashback, which is
As
like,
a
hey,
flashback, so it
doesn't
doesn't
count.
count.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is all I wanted. And then as far as the Ochako thing, it's really cute. I love Mina, where this whole arc, like especially with like the Aizawa thing later, she's just like, oh my gosh, la 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 love, and they're like, and then they're like, all right, we need to leave her alone. She's like, no, you've said it, and I will change the conversation back to love. You're not getting out of this.
Yes.
So that was fun. She's cool. But yeah, I don't have anything else to say about this little section.
Mm-hmm. All right. In that case, it is the day of the exam. Are you nervous, Ian? Have you studied?
Oh, absolutely. I have not played dodgeball in years, so
Oh, excellent. But I mean, before we get to dodgeball, we first get sort of the introduction of the other schools, and we get a whole bunch of new characters. I like Miss Joke. I think she's funny. No pun intended.
Yeah, what's wrong with Aizawa?
Yeah, I mean, I find the joke is really funny. I think the best punchline Hori could do to this relationship is if at the end of the series he in a text box confirms that they married, but we get no context. That's the only relationship I would like that for, because I think it would be so fitting.
That or like along with like a wedding picture, and it's her being like wah ha 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 ha, and he's like just still stone faced.
Yeah, he's still annoyed.
Yeah, he's still annoyed, but he's like, but it's that love annoyed.
Yeah.
Oh no, and then there has to be an epilogue where it's like 10 years later because it's Deku or whatever, and so in the picture it has all of his laughing children. She's like, we'll have a family of laughs.
They're all smiling wildly, but they all have Aizawa's tired eyes.
Yeah, and then in that picture he is actually smiling, but it's like the most faint. It's like so faint that it almost looks like he has a neutral expression. But if you zoom in on the pixels, you can see it slightly goes up to the left.
Yeah. But so we get Miss Joke, we get the entire Ketsubutsu class, which honestly feels like filler characters, but
they suck.
They're cool.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can we get them out of the way? They suck. They're bad. Every time they had a scene, I skipped it because they never do anything ever again except get bodied. They're boring. The one guy's characteristic is that he seems nice, but when you think about it, but is he? And he goes, ooh, you got me. And the way I described it was way more fun than he ever is. So
yeah.
No, they're lame. I don't like them. I think what should have happened is that Joke just should have worked at Shiketsu because the Shiketsu cast is way cooler.
Yeah, it's weird that they need to like make up an entire third school for what matters so little when they already have a second school where they could just say, oh yeah, every other important character works there. Like that was already a perfect like setup. Also, Telescope Girl canonically dates Shindo, and what the fuck is wrong with her? like she is aware that this man is like manipulative and superficially like a superficial chameleon, and all she has to say about it is like, oh, let's go kiss. It's like, what?
Well, maybe actually you found the trick is that she's even more manipulative because she can control
Oh,
him and she likes that. So it's like it's a toxic good relationship because no one she's never gonna get dominated.
I guess. But also, she has the worst quirk in the series by far. So is it really a win?
Hey. I know her. She had no good showing in this. But you take your hand and you wind that into your wrist, and then your wrist winds into your arm, and then your arm winds into your shoulder. That's a mean punch. That's at least like 5% full calorie.
A new power up for Deku? What? Hatsume, I have to break my bones and then unbreak them real quick.
Yeah. He's like he gets so invested. Like so, he changes his obsession. He goes from I'm gonna obsess over mimicking All Might to I'm gonna obsess over mimicking all my friends and enemies. And he's like, I have to do it, Hatsume. I have to break them more. It's the only way. I have a new quirk imprint.
Yes. But yeah, Ketsubutsu sucks. I like Shindo's design just because he's like a non-cutified Deku. So
Indeed.
that's cool, I guess. And his power is cool. Like, if there's one thing this arc has, it's a lot of very interesting quirks. Just
Yeah.
because I like seeing more quirks, I think it's a cool power system. But then we get Shiketsu, which is, of course, the introduction we have to Inasa, to Kami, and to Shishikura. And they're
Yeah.
obviously all memorable characters. Like, I think I like all three of them. Obviously, Kami here is not quite the same as Kami in the next arc.
No, all these
Which
characters come into their own in the babysitting arc, but I think
mhm,
they're still fairly strong here. Like Shishikura, especially like his when he's hanging out with mustacheless Hitler, and
uh-huh.
he's telling him about like, oh, you've been influenced by Stain. Like I think that's really good at like kind of again leading into this idea of like this isn't just an isolated test; it's being a reflection of how society is and his whole thing, his whole deal. Um, and then Cammy is obviously not Cammy, but she'll be fun later. And then
Mhm.
honestly, I kind of like the hair man, where he's just like, "Bro, was Anasa like a jerk to you? I'm sorry." He's like an asshole. Like, and then later he saves him or whatever, and he's just chilling. Like he's got one eye. He's like, "I'm Harry. That's my
Yeah,
power."
no, Mora is great. Mora is great. Also about Shishikura, this is not something I believe is revealed in this chapter or in this arc, but I appreciate the fact that canonically his dad is one of the head guards at Tartarus, and that's sort of probably where he gets like his strict sense of justice from. That's cool. I've always
Yeah,
appreciated that detail.
yeah, no, that's fun. We'll save Anasa for later. I didn't really want to go into him too much. Um, But and then I want to give a shout out to the dub of the anime whenever Aizawa was like, you'll become like full hatchlings or whatever. And I think Kaminari says something like, yeah, let's go become super chickens. Or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think across like this review series, we've praised the dub quite a bit. So if you speak English, which you should if you're listening to this, definitely check out the dub for My Hero. It's really good. Don't listen to people who are mean about it. Uh,
Yeah, it adds in quite a few good jokes. So yeah, no, yeah, I'd recommend it. Okay, then we go inside, and can I take away this little section?
Absolutely, go for it.
Okay, so then we get to Dodgeball. So this is where the arc kind of falls apart. Not entirely. There are good things inside, but this is where Hori like completely fails at creating like the exam because the exam is given so much time dedicated to you have these three little points on your body, and then everyone you once you get two hits on, you're out, and then the person has to go and get two people, and then you pass, and only like 100 people can pass. Cool. All right, but they spend all this time explaining this to you, but those rules do not matter through the whole thing because there's no way that we as the audience can judge how good you're going to be aim at someone's shoulder blade because they can put the things anywhere. So like
Mhm.
even less so do we have basically the problem with this thing is that he gives you all these rules and he gives you all these things to think about that he's telling you like pay attention, this is how this test works. And then through the whole story, none of these characters ever like really take advantage of like how the system works up until the very end with like Deku and Uraraka and Sero. And so like when you have this opening sequence and also the results of how you win are way too specific, but the way you would get that is too vague. So if in this big opening section, right, where they rush in and Ketsubutsu's there and they're just chucking balls, baby, I'm like, dude, why should I be scared at all? You're not aiming.
Mhm.
Are you aiming? Where could you hit them? I don't know where all the points are. So it just feels like vapid nothingness is happening when they're just
Mhm.
throwing these balls. And then any scene I would every time I'd notice this in the anime, anytime characters would encounter each other, they would be like, oh man, how are they going to hit them or whatever? Or like whenever they capture those people and they're talking, they're like, guys, hit their points. Like you're taking too long. And so it's
Mhm.
distracting because the story sets you up to be like, here's this test and here's how it works. And the characters never take advantage or do anything with this until the very end. And even still, they don't act like it's that important. So
Mhm.
it's this big kind of like thing that just hangs over the whole arc, where real or this section anyway, this part of the test, where this test is just completely like there's no way you as the audience can get invested in the test itself. So you have to
Mhm.
be invested in the character stuff, but the characters are still focused on the test. So it's like guys, I don't have any grounding for this. I don't know what this means. So I don't know if any of that made sense or if you felt any of that while you were reading it, but it feels very vapid.
Yeah, no, no. I mean, you've actually put it in good words because I couldn't have formulated it quite as well. But I do feel that the test feels weirdly non like unimportant. And I think you really hit the nail on the head that the rules that are established over such a long period of time. Like they spend so much dialogue and page space on like explaining the test, but then no one does anything interesting with it besides just play the rules completely straight. Like, oh yeah, I have a ball, there's a target, boop, got it.
I'll throw
There's
it and I
never,
hope it works.
yeah, there's never anything like interesting to be done with that system. And I also think this is the arc or one of the arcs where MHA tends to over explain itself to the point where there were chapters where I felt I was just reading a book.
Yeah,
This
I agree.
becomes, I think this becomes worse in the second half of the exam. But even
Yeah.
here, there's so much talk and so much like vapid dialogue where I'm like, hey, look, I get it. This is like an important world building moment for like, how the hero system actually works on the minute level. And I appreciate most of this world building, but could we have some more balance? Like, we,
Can we have some fun?
yeah, like this entire section, we have Kaminari's moment, we have Deku fighting a naked chick, and then we have we have Aoyama basically because Deku passing the exam is such a minor moment. It's kind of or passing
But it
this section of
but
the
it
exam.
takes so long.
Yeah.
Because Kaminari and Aoyama's moments feel cooler, but they take like one chapter. But Deku's whole section here, it's like there's the initial skirmish, then there's him running around, and we get some like flashes to a couple people. Then there's him fighting Kami, and then there's like the final one where it's like half of it is Deku getting, passing the test or whatever, and then the other half is like the Kaminari section. So like 3.5 chapters are just spent on like Ketsubutsu kids who don't matter and I don't care. This Kami scenario, which we can talk about in a sec, but then just Deku just running around and being like, like what do throw ball, but at point where? And it's like, oh,
Uh-huh.
stop, please,
Mhm. Yeah.
get on
No.
with it.
Yeah, no, I think it's weird because it's something that I have been struggling to sort of articulate ever since I read it, but I really do feel that this is how you put like an exam arc in a position where it just cannot engage you in an interesting way, right? Because the rules are too simple but also too like over explained. They end up taking up way too much of the actual page space. And then when it comes to the actual action, the resolutions are so boring and simple. Like, oh, Deku walks up to a restrained guy and does the ball thing. Like, okay, like Deku is supposed to be our smart character. Could he have not come up with like an interesting scheme? Because to me, just sticking people with Sero's tape weighed down by Uraraka's boulders really is not all that interesting.
Well, and that's an example of coming up with a simple solution and it being like it's like okay, duh, who cares? Because the
Mhm.
Deku thing is based with his legs is based on a character flaw of him having this tunnel vision, and the story kind of tricks you into that same position.
Mhm.
But with this, watch any like reaction channel that doesn't immediately like end after the video's over going, I liked that, like, favorite, subscribe. Anyone where they actually discuss the show, like once they explain the rules and it starts, because they don't actually begin the test, they explain the test and then like it ends. And you'll find people being like, oh wait, so maybe they could like put their targets like here, here, and here, and like, oh man, well, can you block the targets? Can you like put your hand? Is that illegal? And they're like discussing this, and then you go into the story, and like characters are just standing around talking. They're just chucking balls willy nilly, and it's just like, oh, well. And
Yeah.
so it doesn't feel like, so you're already bored, and then Deku's like, wait a second, my big brain moment. What if we like captured them and then hit the balls because it's meant to be hard to do? And I'm like, oh my gosh, just move on, please.
Yeah, because for example, I just thought of something. Why didn't Aoyama put one of his targets right above his belly button? As in, like, not on top of it, but right
Like
above
a
it.
trick. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, uh, hitting it would be supremely hard because his laser can come out at any moment and
Yeah.
deflect the ball because of the angle. Obviously, you couldn't put it right on top because then the laser would push off the target, but
Yeah.
still.
Yeah.
Um, or like, what about Bakugo putting putting his targets on the back of his hands so that he's one palm swipe away from just
From hitting you.
explode? Yeah, like
Well, and then what you do is you just make it to where they only have to hit one target and then you're out. So the stakes are always at 11. If you get hit
yeah,
once, you make one mistake. And so you could have a situation where, because Hori doesn't do too complex fights, you could have a situation where Bakugo is attacking and someone, like they're, ganging up on him, someone comes around and goes to hit his arm or whatever, and then he goes bam and he shoots them in the face. And then it's like, oh, but it's on his back too. So they go for that. Then he does a flip or something. It's like every second, every move counts, but he's come up with these
mhm,
strategic places, you know?
mhm, yeah. But no, none of that happens. Like, it almost feels like, honestly, rereading this, it felt like Hori had a lot of fun designing the idea of the test, but then when it
Yeah.
came to writing it, he just wanted to get it done with because he was excited to get to the second part, which he then also sort of just gets done with, which is annoying.
Yeah, but to be fair to this section, well, actually, I want to talk about the one more negative thing, and then we can get to the two good ones.
Hmm.
So let's talk about Kami and Deku.
Hmm.
So with this little part, um, I ain't no prude or whatever, but why are we just fighting some naked chick? Why what's the point of this weird little section where we're just like just talking to Kami, and she's just, and like, if you didn't figure out it was Toga, then it just comes across as like, okay, another girl likes Deku, and it's like, girl, why aren't you hitting his points? You're just like on
Hmm.
top of him, giving him exposition, and then like all the people show up and he's like, oh no, what do I do? And then he's talking and talking. He's like, Deku, move, do anything. It just, I don't know. It feels like this really oddly placed encounter that's just like, it's just weird and uncomfortable.
Hmm.
And it just
Yeah.
feels, I don't know. I don't like it always. And I obviously we know this is for Toga's character. It in hindsight, a lot of it kind of adds to her like, oh well, you save other people, and this kind of ties into the war and all that stuff. But actually reading it, it just feels so self-indulgent.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It feels. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I would call it gratuitous, but it feels odd because you also have her like display a new ability that has never been mentioned before. Like, oh, she can disappear. It's not a quirk. It's just like a tactic,
Yeah.
and so you're still trying to process sort of the confusion of that, and then also she's acting weird, and then you find out it's Toga at the end of the arc, but that also still doesn't explain how she can like just vanish within a second. um it really feels like just Hori really wanted like a weirdly sexual scene where she's like pinning him down, and the next scene she's naked, and he just needed to sort of constellate it one way or another.
Well,
um
oh, yeah, finish. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say it doesn't feel great. It's weird, it's odd.
Well, and I think the big thing for it, right, is that because here's the thing. I think the whole nudity aspect is actually a part that, when it's done well with Toga's character, I think really adds to it, because her whole thing is like this weird sexuality combined with like bloodlust and stuff. And I think that's a really, like, I think you can use that compellingly. Like they have this little story later, and like way later in the story, like in this final arc, where it's like
Hmm.
a picture of, it's like a naked version of her body, and then it's like a bird like eating into her stomach or something. And that's like an artsy way to have like the nudity and tie it into her character. Whereas this just kind of feels like just having it to have it. And it's
Hmm.
annoying because I would like to, because I'm still in, when I'm reading it, I'm still like, oh man, how are they going to do cool things with this test? And then you just have this girl pop in and be just doing all this weird stuff. And you're like, oh my gosh, can we just move on? Can anything happen? Ah! But I will say, so we can move into the positives. I will say that I really, really love, this is one of my favorite kind of Deku moments of this arc, the moment where he sees fake Toga fall and he knows it's fake. She's fake because, she's Ochako, but she's not using her quirk. And he
Hmm.
still wants to save her, which is cool thing number one. But two, I really like seeing in practice why he chose to use his feet now, because he's like, when I was fighting muscular, I chose to fight, but I couldn't run because I also wasn't fast enough. But maybe if I'd been fast enough, I could have done this. Maybe if I'd done that, then maybe I could have, All Might wouldn't have had to do his thing. And so I like seeing this in action of him saving someone and then still fighting. He uses his cool little kickback thing, and we get a cool showing of his shoot style where he breaks the foothold. And it's like, yeah,
Hmm.
you can now imagine if Deku had been stronger back then and he had like his feet were stronger, he could have, he could have ran for muscular, or maybe he could have used the force of his feet to maybe break a couple rocks or something, and use that as like a foothold or something like that.
Hmm.
And so it's just nice to see that in action, and then having him save someone who he knows is a fake, and he that in a thankfully cool moment he like slaps the ball away or whatever. So
Hmm.
I genuinely love that moment. I love the little panel shot of like when she's falling, you turn the page, and it's just like this really reserved, like not even confident, but just like just a simple face of Deku looking, black panels of all the little dialogue, and then he saves her, and then he moves on. So we get to see in
Hmm.
action his determination to not use his arms, and then we get to see, oh wow, with these shoes, it's like, wow, he can really still pack a punch. Dope, good
Hmm.
job, Deku. Good moment. I really genuinely like that moment.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think especially the line where he's like, "Oh yeah, I figured you were not the real Uraraka, but I still had to save you." I feel like that's very, very Deku in like the best way possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So then we can move on to Kaminari. I just think this is dope. Like Kaminari is so cool, and the way he's drawn, and like his little like, oh, I wasn't talking about me, and just like
Hmm.
seeing how far he's come from being like, oh yeah, Bakugo, like you're a big steaming turd, and then I think he says in this, he's like, yeah, he's got the personality of a steaming turd, but he is trying to be a hero. So you get to see that progression. It's just kind of cool for Kaminari to be like their wingman, being like, nah, Kirishima and Bakugo, they're my bros. Shut up. And then he zaps them, zaps the dude. And
Hmm.
it looks really cool. Horikoshi did a good job of jobbing. Do you know what jobbing is, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay. So he actually did a good use of jobbing with Bakugo, where Bakugo gets beat, but he still is able to think fast and provide a way for Kaminari to then use his dope gadget, which I love his gadget of like creating like these pinpoints, like again, like a video game, creating these little pinpoints, and then you shoot and it hits the guy. So
Hmm.
genuinely, just that moment is just dope. I love that for Kaminari. I loved all of it. So I don't know what you think about it.
No, I am a big fan of Kaminari in general. I wish he was cool more often. Um,
Mhm.
and I am a big fan of the idea that there are like these cliques or these groups in class that just naturally form through people being friends. More so with some people than others. And so I've always been fond of like the zero brain cell gang, which is just Bakugo, Kaminari, Kirishima, and sometimes Sero. Like I just appreciate the idea that there's just a natural group of friends that has formed.
Yeah,
Um,
feels more
so
real.
so that anything that sort of leans into that immediately feels cooler to me because of that.
Yeah,
Um,
it gives it a context that gives it more weight. I also love the joke of like, he's like, "Why'd you even show up?" He's like, "Everyone was running and I panicked. I didn't want to be alone, so I just followed you."
yeah, absolutely. And also, I like that because this is sort of again like the way we talked about Deku Souls, that it sort of changes the way the power works in a sense. And this is even more so the case with Kaminari's costume upgrade, which turns, his very much free for all nuke power, where electricity just goes anywhere, into an actual pinpointed attack. And I really appreciate how that changes him into a more effective fighter going forward, because we also obviously see this work out in joint training
And the war.
and yeah, in the war. So to me, this is one of those like, hey, I wish this led to more Kaminari moments kind of things.
Yeah, and I get that. And I know a lot of people like it's like he has lightning powers, do more cool lightning powers things. But I think it falls into kind of what I like about Deku of like his whole thing is he becomes really dumb after it. So I kind of like that he actually has to regress in power so that he can grow in like battle prowess. Um
Hmm.
so that part's just always been really fun to me because again we kind of take it for granted because he doesn't do it anymore. But up until now, the gag was constantly big blast, duh.
Hmm.
So to actually see him like in this moment do something cool and then not come out of it being like, duh, but still dumb. Like he just like,
Uh-huh.
oh yeah, he did it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
cool. um, and then finally, did you have anything else to say about that?
No, Kaminari is cool. I like that
Yeah.
moment.
And then finally, we have Ida and Aoyama. Ida, just real quick, I'll say, he's so dope. He's a character who, thankfully, since his character really did actually come full circle and he got a big climax in the villain hunt arc, I can
Hmm.
like these little moments where he kind of fades into the background, but he's still doing things. I really appreciate. I really like that the idea is like Ida in these other stories, he was trying to like step up and be like the Chadley hero who's gonna go kill Stain or whatever. And now he's like
Hmm.
become so humble that he's just like, I'm not even a main character in this arc. I want to make sure that all my other classmates get their license first because that's what my brother would do. It's what I would do because I'm cool. And so it's really heartwarming for him to just because he hasn't really talked to Aoyama or anything. So just for him to
Yeah.
go to this a random classmate and be like, "No, man, I want to make sure that you're safe. Are you doing okay? Like, I'll get you out of here. We're gonna pass."
Hmm.
And so I don't know. Like, it's a moment that I've always wanted to talk about, just simply because people after Stain they kind of downplay Ida's more minor roles. But as we talked
Hmm.
about in Camino, he does so much for his character when he stops Deku and he has his moments. And then I think in this it really shows again, it's micro progression, so I think people don't care as much because it's not a big fight. But I
Hmm.
just really like this little section where he's encouraging and being the class rep.
Yeah, no, I definitely think it's important to have moments like these because again, they sort of sell this idea of the class, right? Sort of like how the friend groups did, where like, yeah, he on a character like spreadsheet, Ida has no real relationship to Aoyama because they've never really shared a scene together, but they're classmates. And so they would, to a certain extent, have this rapport of, hey, I don't know you very well, but I do kind of want to help you. And so I really appreciate the way Ida sort of talks to him as well, where he's like, look, I don't understand what the fuck you're on about, but we're going to pass together. Let's do this. And then, Aoyama is screaming in French. And Ida's like, yes, mon ami, we're doing this. And I really appreciate that because it sells this like, hey, I don't know you very well, but you're my class. I'm class rep. I want to take care of you. So yeah, it's as you said, it's a micro progression, but one that I think benefits Ida quite a bit in the long run.
Yeah.
Especially since, as you said, he has basically come full circle now.
Yeah, and then of course Aoyama, he gets a really nice moment. I've always liked Aoyama because he's weird, and I just
Hmm.
like the trope of like the coward who at the last second, does something really heroic. But I really like that in this section particularly, they don't really focus on it, and maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I feel like I'm not because when they focus mostly on his like inferiority complex with these flashbacks of like the foreshadowing like his belly button thing, like how his quirk doesn't really work like everybody else.
Hmm.
And that's kind of like a thing that's always with him. Um, but I really think like the big thing he feels inferior about is that literally when we find him, he is cowering and hiding, which is what he's been doing the whole series during USJ,
Hmm.
during Camp Arc. And so
Hmm.
when he's like I'm standing out, um, to me wouldn't really make sense if the whole point is like it's like why are you doing this, Aoyama? Well, my quirk has always been weird and like I got things that would make it better and for some reason in this moment I feel inferior still. It's like, well, no, it would have to be connected to something that's happening, which is that he's hiding and so now
Hmm.
he's going to step out and do something, and not just at the last second, like he's going to do it now to help out everybody and then actually seeing that leading all of his friends together and rallying them and then allowing them to pass the test, uh you know hot take, probably not in this circle, but I think that moment's far more emotional than the class being like, Aoyama, sure, you almost got us killed, but like you're our bro.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I genuinely love the moment where he brings everyone together. He thinks like he's gonna sacrifice himself, but they're like, nah, bro, you brought us together. Let's kick ass. Let's go.
Yes, yes. That's a very, I mean, in general, sort of that entire sort of sequence where the class comes in, you have like the birds, and then you have Tokyami and Mina. That's just a very nice sort of class A unity moment, which we don't get that many of them, and very few of them feel earned, at least lately.
Yeah.
So it's good to have to remind ourselves that there's one at least that was actually genuinely earned, and that's this one.
And it's great too because it doesn't involve any of our main boys like Bakugo,
Yes.
Todoroki, or Ida, or Bakugo, or
Mhm.
Deku, Bakugo, Todoroki. There you go.
Yes, yes.
um, yeah, it doesn't involve any of them. So yeah, and it's just it's the Kaminari and Aoyama's thing. It's another example of just these side characters still doing things even if they're minor, and like you said, adding to this idea that Class 1A is its own character. So yeah, so
Mm,
as much as I to wrap up this little section of the test, as much as I think the ball throwing stuff really bogs down the story because there's a lot of exposition, there's a lot of sequences where characters are just throwing balls, and I don't care. When we actually
mhm,
get to the character moments, as usual, that is really great. So
mhm. Yes, absolutely. And then of course we move on from dodgeball to rescue exercise, which
yeah,
I just on a like basic level like a lot more
me
because
too. Yep.
yeah, because it's not just oh yeah play dodgeball. It's actually something that's related to the hero profession, something that's you know very pertaining to what they're going to be doing in their future. They're not going to be throwing balls around. They're going to be saving civilians. And I'm sure I've told you before. I am in the military. I am a
Yes.
rescue worker, and so to
Oh.
me, yes, a catastrophe response. And to me, a lot of this section is really cool because the advice they give and the things they consider is genuinely good. Literally, the only thing, sort of, the only professional disagreement I would have with the way it's laid out is that it's nonsense to send these kids out to figure out for themselves what role they should be playing, because that's not how that works. You are generally, if you're a rescue troop, you are in predetermined groups that have predetermined tasks. Because obviously, if someone has to on the spot think, okay, what am I good at? That's wasting time.
Well,
Um,
yeah, I will say that I think this is one of those shonenisms tied
yes,
in with
yes, of
it in
course.
tied in with an in-universe reason, because they do say since we're first years, we should have already gotten that training, and they say like the second and third years they seem to already know what to do because
Hmm.
they've got that training. So it's like a shonenism for our main characters, but it's like I do appreciate that Hori at least tried to give an in-universe reason, you know.
Hmm. Yeah,
But
absolutely.
yeah, no, I agree. But yeah, no, I really genuinely like this section. Like I think it's dope, especially like we can get to the action portion later. But I really love the scene with Deku and that the kid or whatever. And him just being like, "Oh no, where's your grandpa? I'll help him. This is bad," you know? And
Hmm.
it's like, bro, bro, no.
Yeah,
but
you can.
I like that there's actually practical advice. Like when I read that today, I was like, "Oh yeah, no, like if I was ever around someone who needed help, just not even just like in a life or death situation, but yeah, no, that is actually a really good advice of like, don't come in and be like, ooh, man, you really scraped yourself up there, huh, kid?"
Uh-huh. Yeah, of course. And I also actually, maybe my favorite thing that they do is when Momo and Uraraka are about to try and save that man stuck in rubble, and Uraraka wants to leap in, and then Momo's like, "Wait a minute. Do you see sort of the constellation of rubble here? If we move something hastily, we might actually bring the whole building down." And I was like, "Yes, support beams. Fucking fucking get the building squat ready." Like, yes, that is genuinely a huge concern when you're dealing with catastrophes, that your rescue efforts will actually just make everything worse if you don't assess the terrain as well as you can. So yeah, I was very happy to see sort of that aspect of it, I guess, represented. And I mean, they it stretches it a little, in one moment, but I also really love it, is when Bakugo yells at those at those victims like, "Oh, did he figure out that we're low priority victims?"
Yeah. Well, but thankfully he gets hard punished for it. So
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. No, I remember watching that with my friend who just hates Bakugo, and he just like threw his hands up. He's like, of course, that idiot just gets to buy with anything. Ah, and he was very happy when he failed. He's like, yes, you deserve it. He deserves detention forever. Expel him.
Get him out
Um,
of here.
yeah,
Um,
but no, I really like that moment. I also I really like oh, what was it? They run. I like the idea of one, the people on the ground are coming up with assessments, and then I like that they have like this is where like the details I do like because then you have the guy. They say like, oh, but there's also 100 people in the stands, and they're all watching an individual kid to like make sure they do what they need to do.
mhm,
That's a cool little detail. I really like Deku when he does come to that realization. He thinks back to All Might, just being like, "Don't worry, I'm here," and then he comes in, he's like, it's okay, you know. And I appreciate that even when he gets it, he's still kind of getting it wrong where he's like, it's okay, don't worry, it's okay. It's like, man, is that the only thing you could say? You're really bad at this. And that's a genuinely like again, that's a minor micro progression of like it's like, yes, no, it's not just that I want to be a hero just to like, oh, save Coda or whatever. It's like, no, you know, and save people. It's like, no, this is like a profession, I gotta do it, you know.
mhm,
And that's great. But I guess we can real quick talk about the because this is where one character kind of completes their story for this section. Uraraka. So she has
mhm,
her big crush that's been going on since the mall. Now I used to be a big defender of this because I used to say, well, you know, for one, Uraraka got characterized before this, so it wasn't just like she was a love interest from the start, as far as like characterization wise. But the my big defense for it was always that the whole point of the arc is that she says no, that romance stuff can wait. And the reason I'm inspired by Deku isn't just like, oh, he hot though. It's because he's like inspirational. He's a cool guy, and so I want to be like him. And so then, bada bing, bada boom, we do it. And I used to think that was really good. However,
mhm,
with the context of the whole series, considering the fact that I always thought or hoped that Deku and Uraraka would hopefully get together before, you know, the final credits roll, which seems like that's going to be the case now. It's going to either be like in a big conflict or it's going to be at the very, very end of the story. So I always thought like, oh, this will get resolved, you know, later, and that'll be really cool. But two,
mhm,
I always thought, okay, we had this little section so that then he can give her some big moments. And
mhm,
unfortunately, going forward in this arc alone, like she has her big revelation, right? And then she immediately messes up and Momo has to correct her, and then that's all she does for the arc. So, uh-oh. Then we go to Overhaul arc. She doesn't do anything except for like one team up move. And then we go more and more and more, and then we get to joint training where she finally gets a good moment again, but it's still tied to this it's tied to this new idea. So like her competency, her saying like, I'm gonna give up this whole weird crush thing that's going on because it's distracting me and that's not helpful, which ties into Todoroki having these distractions based on personal issues that he needs to work out, and Deku having this personal issues of tunnel vision with All Might. So it's all connected. But
mhm,
Uraraka, the reason when people read through this they think, oh, Uraraka just becomes the love interest is because Hori's not giving her other traits to like spotlight. And so
mhm,
he focuses solely on this romance thing, and then he doesn't like pay it off with her doing something really cool or like really growing and changing in a big way. Because if you're gonna, because we talk about micro progressions are cool, but the
mhm,
reason they hit is because they come after the big moment. And the problem is that the big moment in this arc is Uraraka saying, I don't want to crush no more, but we've spent so much time on that crush that is the big moment. So any tiny
uh-huh,
micro progressions she has just feels like tink, tink, tink. It's just like bouncing off your head. You don't even recognize
mhm,
until
mhm,
finally in joint training. And even then, since you focus so much on the crush, everyone intrinsically, when they see, they're like, "Aw, isn't that cute? She's saving her boyfriend." It's like,
mhm.
so yeah, I think that whole part. Every time we pause to focus on it in this arc, I was just like, "Oh my gosh, who cares?"
Yeah. Yeah, I think Uraraka got hit with the final arc effect, where a lot of her progression and a lot of her character moments, including the ones here in this arc, are kind of entirely predicated on the promise of guys, trust me, this is a slow burn, but it'll be so good by the end. Um, And obviously, we are now at the end in the manga, and nothing's happened, or it has led nowhere. Um, and so, in hindsight, a lot of these moments become kind of vapid and more annoying than they were 2 years ago, for example. Because now we know, no, this is not going to lead to a mature sort of dissection of how Uraraka can marry these feelings that she doesn't want to deny herself with her career path, and how that can interact with Deku and his priorities. No, we're not getting any of that anymore. They're just going to get together off screen during a time skip in the final chapter at this point.
Or
There's,
they're gonna kiss at the end or something.
yeah,
And
there's
again,
no way.
even if our worst case scenarios don't happen, again, it's too late. So because we're in the
Yeah.
final battle. So if you do anything, and to the people who are maybe commenting, it's like, yes, I think that Uraraka's moment in joint training, I think is dope, because I like we talked about in that arc. If you want to go watch our arc review of that, Uraraka kind of like changes purposes like throughout the series, versus like
Mhm.
for her parents, and it's like this romance thing. Then it's like, I want to be a hero who saves heroes. And it's like, we never get to focus on one long enough for that to be her character. So she's just a bunch of like half character moments.
Mhm.
And that's where this kind of happens, is like, yes, I do like the scene where she tells the people to let Deku in. She has this great speech. I really love that. That's great.
Mhm.
But my problem is that this aspect from this arc has not been paid off, and consistently was the focus. And then when they could have paid it off in this arc, they're in the test. Let her lift 50 buildings or something, or do anything to like
Uh-huh.
show. The point is that she's like saying like, I'm not being competent, I'm not being good as like a hero, just a hero, because of these feelings. But then we don't get anything from that. And then her big hero moment is based on, maybe not romantic, but her caring about Deku. So it still comes back to that. So it's like, we're not capitalizing on this idea of Deku inspires me, therefore I'm going to become great on my own. Instead, it still all wraps around to Deku inspires me, romantic or not, and I'm going to impact him. And it's like, no,
Mhm.
that's where Ida and Kaminari stand out, because they are doing things that are impacting other characters that are completely unrelated to them, you know?
Mhm.
And Uraraka didn't get that. And so in hindsight, this kind of stuff just feels like, can we move on, please?
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah,
know you're just gonna
exactly.
drop this basically.
Exactly. Like it's one of those victims of hindsight, basically.
Yeah. But then the mad Chad himself, Gang Orca, appears.
Yes.
The coolest character in the whole series. I am so glad that he is still great. The anime did him so dirty. All the moments where he just like the kids will attack him, and then the next panel is like him right in front of him being like, bitch, and then he just destroys them. It's so
Uh-huh.
great. Every time he just murders these children. What a cool guy. I love him.
Yes. And just in general, the entire thing where he has that dramatic panel where he's like waving his cape or his coat, um, and he's coming in as like with like this army of terrorists, but
Yeah.
also he's a fucking orca.
And he's got a tongue tie.
Yeah, yeah, and also he's voted third most villainous looking hero.
Yeah,
Like,
like
come
everything
on.
about him is perfect.
Yes. I also like how one of his actual weaknesses is drying out.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
He's
Um,
yeah, he's great. He's a highlight of this whole arc. I was like, yes, because Gang Orca used to be one of my favorite heroes, and I'm like, was that just like, back in my baby innocent brain MHA fandom life? But now that I'm a hardened Hori denier, will I still love Gang Orca? And yes, I do. Gang Orca is still great.
absolutely.
It's so funny. That's all I have to say about him. Now we can talk about the main show, the main duo,
Mhm.
Todoroki and Inasa. Do you want to talk about this? Do you have strong opinions on this? I do. So I don't know.
Uh, I think it is great that Todoroki has still at this point still has stuff to like progress into.
Mhm.
Um, because the thing with Hori is he likes these slow burn character arcs. He's always liked doing them up until recently, and I think Todoroki is one of his best examples at this point,
Yeah.
where it's like I've moved past my dad, but have I though? And I really like how Inasa tickles that out of him in a sense. We're actually going to talk about another character later where I think the slow burn has not worked out. But Todoroki, as far as he goes, he really sort of sells you on this idea that getting over yourself and getting over who you've been for a decade is a really tough thing. And that even in the world of shonenisms, it's not something you do lightly. And through Inasa, we get to see like a long-lasting consequence of those years in Todoroki's life where he was just an asshole. Um, but when it comes to strong opinions about Inasa, I don't have as many as I think you do. So why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, so to bounce off Todoroki, Todoroki is still one of my favorite MHA characters. He's probably still on my top 5 because I just love the micro progressions as we talk about. But I think to your point, it's like because it's really interesting because it's not really like Hori's saying like he got over his dad, but has he? And it's like because when you think back to the sports festival, what he got over was his quirk, but he never
Mhm.
got over his dad.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what's so cool about this moment is like because this is a very practical thing that he would have to worry about is like his dad's the number one hero now, so people are going to be talking about him, and people are
Mhm.
going to be comparing him even more because to him, and so to just have this guy be like, "You remind me of your dad. You got like weird eyes, idiot," and he's like,
Uh-huh.
and it's like and it really works because it's this kind of thing of like he's like yeah like my quirk is my own, he's not lost that, he doesn't doubt that, but he's like but am I like my dad in any way, and you have this person who's saying yes you are, and so it's like now he can't blame it on just like a power or whatever, like this resentful thing, which is cool because he embraced the fact that his whole thing at first was actually that he embraced that he was Endeavor's son and he was going to use that to get revenge because it was so much a part of his identity. And but
Mhm.
then he tied that to his quirk. So he thought by releasing himself of that, he released himself of his dad. He did not. So this is great. And I love the visual of like the little flame of like it's like it doesn't matter. I'm over that. And it's this tiny little flame. And then he's like, no. And then it turns into the mask of Endeavor. Um, all that stuff's really great. Again,
Mhm.
something that most people would probably mock, but I'm just like, yes, let's go. Is when he's like, because the whole time he's like trying to learn how to use his fire and ice power at the same time. And then you would think, okay, so at the very end, he's going to do something really cool where he uses fire and ice. At the very end, he's like, no, I still can't do this, but I ain't moving. So, like, I can basically do it. It's like, and I like that. Uh, and I mean, the art, the expressions on their faces look really great. I like their team up power of using the wind and the fire. So Todoroki's great. And then before I get to Anasa, a moment that just warms my heart because it's my favorite ship, the friendship of Deku and Todoroki, is the moment
Uh-huh.
where he's like, I've lost, I suck, and then Deku comes in to kick Gang Orca. I love that he says, "Please get away from them," because he's
Yes,
Figures
he's
is a
pride.
professional.
Yes.
But that's great. But the moment that it always tugs at my heart is he's like, Midoriya, you. It's always you.
Mhm.
Which is just, my heart. It's, yeah, every time you're having your PTSD dad moment, Deku comes in and he's like, bro, I got you, bro. He's like, oh, mom, I know. He's got me. I love it. It's adorable.
Mhm.
It's great. Good stuff. Um, and the anime does a really good job where it's like Deku comes in on like the guitar riff.
Mhm.
So that's good. So there's that. But then talking about Inasa, most people that I know seem to hate him just because they're like his thing's really petty, it's stupid, whatever. He was mean to you and he didn't sign your autograph. One in the manga, it seems way more clear to me that it wasn't that he like the anime adds the like slapping the autograph thing out of his hand.
Uh-huh.
But in the manga, he's just like walking straight, like there's no like follow through of like his hand being outstretched when he falls. So I just thought it was the idea of a giant walking fireman is walking towards me and he's not stopping. Uh-oh, and he falls.
Mhm.
That's what I always thought the implication was, but whatever. Um, I like Inasa. I think he's really fun. I like how over the top he is. I like that the manga is self-aware that he is ridiculous. So you have him like he bows and he bashes his head into the concrete, and he's bleeding. So it's like
Mhm.
the manga is aware that he is like an extreme example, but you need those extreme examples to represent the public when we go out into the Twice chapter and we actually see the normal people being like, oh, I don't really vibe with Endeavor. He's kind of, that kind of thing. Um,
Mhm.
and what I think makes Inasa really fun and what I think makes him really likable, one, his power is really cool, I like his personality, is that he genuinely did try to give Todoroki a chance. Like he saw him and he was like, I'm getting bad vibes. But you know what? Maybe that's on me. Maybe if I just like
Mhm.
be friends with him, it'll be fine. And the first thing he says to him is he's like, "Oh, you're Endeavor's son, the person he hates. That's really cool. It's nice to meet
Mhm.
you." And then Endeavor, and then Shoto basically says like, screw off, die, move it.
Mhm.
He says, and so I'm I totally get like the whole thing with Anasa is just like bad vibes. I do not like bad vibes. Um,
Yeah.
and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like I think if you think about this from the perspective of like meeting your heroes, right? Like in real life, if people say don't meet your heroes, just think about like any YouTuber you watch. So you're watching me, the illustrious IanWaffles and Oceans. Imagine you
Uh-huh.
meet imagine you meet us and you have positive associations with us because of our YouTube videos. And what if you just like catch us on a bad day and you like walk up to us and we're just like, dude, can you leave me alone? Like I don't want to talk. That that's not just like a bad interaction where someone was like mean to you. You have investment in people from their personas they portray. And so it's not just like, oh, they were being rude. If you don't have the potential to have that nuance of like, oh, maybe they're having a bad day. They don't usually act like this, la, 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 it feels like a betrayal because you put all this
Mhm.
investment in them and then they threw it back at you. Um,
Mhm.
and so if you have someone like Endeavor, who is going to be this new All Might equivalent, that's a big deal. That's a big deal to have someone like that who people are going to literally look up as a hero. And so for him to have that bad vibe, it's like, no, I don't want to be around that. And so no, I totally understand where Anas is coming from. I like that he understands that he's petty, and I also like that he remains petty. And at the very end, he's like, Todoroki, I still kind of don't vibe with you, bro. But like, I'm sorry, but see ya.
Yeah, no, that's I think the nice thing about Inasa is how simple he really is. He just doesn't want to hang around people that aren't appreciative of their surroundings and of like their lives basically, like because we get like that flashback where he's like, I can get excited about anything, so the one thing I cannot endorse are people who like cynically look at the world and are cold and icy towards the things around them. And that's kind of the whole thing with the ice. And I like that you bring up his first meeting with Todoroki at the like assessment for UA, because I think a lot of people forget about that. A lot of people like think of Inasa as the guy who's mad Endeavor didn't give him an autograph, but really what made Inasa mad is not that Endeavor didn't give him an autograph, but to see that Endeavor is like this perceptible iciness of his gaze and of his attitude is not a one-off thing, but that it is perpetuated throughout like his family and I suppose through association through his heroism, through his presence in the world. And so he gave Todoroki that chance. He tried to put his first impression of Endeavor aside, and then he gets rejected again. And it's sort of like, yeah, no, you would not like that guy. That's totally understandable to me.
Yeah, no, and if you want to go to UA, this place you think's really great, and you're probably going to be in class with that kid. I don't know. I want good vibes when I'm being a hero. I don't want to be around that.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I think that's fun. I think it ties into the world. I think Inasa is goofy enough that the manga doesn't like take itself too seriously to where you have to like. That's again, this is where the anime really does mess up. Is that like if you take something like the boob scene where they just oh wacky, it's like no, that
Mhm.
was supposed to be more of a subtler, funnier joke. But with Inasa, they really mess it up because in his flashback where he's like, bro, I like bugs, they play like
Mhm.
the sad music and it's like Hibito and they're playing the
Mhm.
Todoroki theme and it's like no 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 no. like when I
Mhm.
like when I read that chapter, I don't read it from like this is really sad backstory. I read it from like Inasa's being like, bro, like red hot bloodedness, and you guys are
Mhm.
assholes. Like I don't
Mhm.
like it, you know. And it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah, like so again, I think that's also where people don't like Inasa is that the anime really, really leans into like, wow, look at his sad, tragic backstory, and it's like it's not, guys.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I mean, that's just the anime, like, because the license exam is where I would say the anime starts messing up with music placement, especially, and starts overly relying on the same 5 songs, which is a huge shame, in my opinion. I mean, again, we've mentioned that we won't talk about Overhaul quite yet, but because he does get introduced in this section. But I will never forgive the anime for making this incredible, fantastic theme song for Overhaul and using it once in the fucking movie tie-in filler episode. Like
Yeah.
that's you can't make that up. Like someone actually woke up and decided to ruin my day.
Well,
That time. Like
a-
impossible to come up with that.
and Overhaul has two themes. He has a theme that they don't use in the anime. If you go
Yeah.
if you go to the season 4 soundtrack, there is oh my gosh, there's so many songs that they made. They have like one for Airy, they have like two for Overhaul, they have like a battle track, and they just don't use it.
Yeah.
And they're
Or like
named after the characters.
I mean, again, the biggest joke will always be the track called Deku versus Bakugo not playing during Deku versus Bakugo. Like, what was the point
But do you remember where it was played?
at the introduction of the big three?
When Mirio's kicking their butts, and you know
Yeah.
what theme's not played like ever for that character? Mirio's theme.
Yes.
Why would you have? Oh my god! Wait, hold on. I'm gonna do this rant, then we can move on.
Absolutely.
When he's fighting all the kids, and it's like in the manga, it's funny, it's a joke, but then they play the serious music. He has a theme song that sounds like it's glitching, and it's like, why would you use it? Ah! You fools!
Well, I think this just comes back down to the fact that honestly, after the Kamino arc, the anime just kind of goes off the rails in how it uses a lot of its resources because they do this shit every season. Every season, they have a fantastic lineup of music, and then they don't use it. Like season 4 was the same. Season 5 did a little better, but still really underused the My Villain Academia tracks, especially. So yeah, just I don't know, because it's not Yuki Hayashi's fault. He's just a composer.
No,
Yeah,
and all his music's great.
yeah, he's fantastic. But like the episode directors and the series directors just have no clue what to do with his music, despite him putting the directions in the fucking titles.
Yeah, he has a song called Aoyama, and it's a great like upbeat like whoa, Aoyama's like and you know he made that probably looking at the manga and seeing the moment where all the kids come together, because it has like this like upbeat to tune, and then it goes dun, it's like plays a little bit of Yusei Run, and it's like this great epic moment. But then when it actually happens in the anime, they play like some depressing operatic theme. It's like, no, this is supposed to be a positive, like, yeah, Aoyama's so cool, baby. Woo! No, why wouldn't you just use it?
Yeah, it's annoying as fuck.
Oh boy. All right. So then they do all that stuff. And then we get to the results, right? Do you have anything else to say about this little section?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess we can just wrap this up real quick with this little section. I really, really appreciate that Todoroki, Inasa, Bakugo, they just fail.
Yes.
And it's another situation where MHA says, wait, you're big top shot main characters. Deku's been getting the rough end of the stick. Screw you. Die. You have to go babysit now. You're literally out. You're kicked out of the longest arc to date. Next, most popular characters, Deku and Todoroki and Bakugo. And I love that. I love that they actually get punished for their problems. I like that Todoroki's really humble about it. And I really love that he did that. Like, again, that's it was a thing that I just always appreciated about MHA, was that, yeah, that's not the fun thing to do. Wouldn't it be way more fun if like Todoroki and Bakugo got to go on a cool adventure? But it's the most satisfying one to me because I care about their character progression, and I want to see them fail like this and have to really dig themselves out. And we'll get to the babysitting arc when we get to it. But that arc's one of my favorites because it's so unorthodox, especially for a battle shonen, showing how these characters have to actually be better. And I just really like that he did that. So really love that they failed. It's actually good use of Mineta, where he's like, the hierarchy is falling. You fool. But yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything else to say about that.
Yeah, like you've kind of already taken it away. Like, I just like it when Hori does things that are not the shonen standard, because when you have main characters, you expect them to come out of every arc having learned something new and having mostly succeeded, with caveats that make them that push them towards their next goal. But Hori has the sports festival where Deku flops out in the in the quarterfinals even. And you have this where the most popular character in the series, Bakugo, just doesn't fucking pass. And I really enjoy these like upsets to the dynamic because it means that there is an actual tension with these school arcs, namely that not everyone who's in the obvious we're gonna win camp is actually going to obviously win. So yeah, as you said, I just have always appreciated that aspect of this arc.
Absolutely. I don't really have anything to say about the little section where they're outside. We talked about Inasa. He's funny.
Hmm.
Then we find out that Toga's Cammy. There's no real reason for us to be like, "Ooh, what does this mean?" Because
Yeah.
we know. So yeah, I really don't have anything to say here. And then I think you and I, we had already decided we're just gonna skip the All for One and All Might conversation
Yes,
because we
because
basically already ripped into it
yeah.
in the previous video. So if you're just watching these out of order, if you just wanted to know about the license exam, we already made a video talking about Camino. But I do want to add a little addendum, which is that I do really like that after All Might has this really crushing conversation with All for One, that Deku sends him a message where he has his license and he's like, "This is all thanks to you," and it makes All Might
Hmm.
smile. I'm like, "That's cute,
Yes.
good, wholesome." And that's it. And that's also a good Deku moment where he's holding the license and he goes like, this proves like, or he says, this proves that that I've come really far. But the part that I really like is like, I caused a lot of trouble for a lot of people, and a lot of people really worked to get me this far. So now it
Hmm.
really feels like I proved something.
Yeah,
Like I made up for it.
yeah, I'm ready to give back, basically.
Yeah, which is dope and good. So yeah.
Hmm.
Um, then there's the Twice chapter. Um, do you have anything to say on that? I feel like Twice is so good that he's just like self-explanatory. It's like, oh, well,
Yeah,
his backstory is good.
yeah, exactly. Like I think it's funny in that one chapter. Twice does more heavy lifting for the world building than most of like the exposition during the actual license exam.
Oh
Like
yeah.
he is so good for the story, and we get to see sort of the underworld a little more. Um, I love the added detail in the anime where they interview that one guy who goes, "Oh yeah, there's like a fan club of fire users for Endeavor because we gotta stick together." And I've always liked that. I always think that yeah, of course there'd be like a stan group for it for Endeavor if you're also a fire type, or a fire user. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, as you said, Twice is just great. Like there's not a lot we can add that isn't self-evident. Like he's a cool character with a backstory that is genuinely like affecting. Um, and he's just likable, which obviously makes his involvement in the war arc all that more yeah, tragic.
Yeah, and I will say that one thing as like a comparison point is that during the war arc, we have kind of like this idea of like, oh no, there was a lot of casualties and stuff. And like people are really sad and scared and messed up. And my big critique of that was always like, it's like, yeah, we've gotten like general stuff. But when those people come to Endeavor and Hawks and Best Genus and they say like, you all suck, you let us die. What about and that I what about the buildings? They don't mention people who died. I don't understand, but whatever. They're, what about the
Hmm.
buildings? What about our houses? So they do that, and it's like when they're doing that, and then when the people are when they're not letting Deku into the school, a lot of the reaction and my reaction is shut up. Like I don't know you. Go
Hmm.
away. Like let the heroes do their thing. They worked a lot. And I think the reason that is because we were never given a chapter like this where Twice just having this one chapter immediately humanizes him and makes you like him. And so no
Hmm.
matter what horrible thing he does or is going to do, you understand and almost root for him in a sense. And I always wished that we had gotten one chapter in the war arc where it's from, even if it was half a chapter, just from a civilian's perspective while Gigantomachia is rampaging. Maybe it's some guy
Yeah.
who's on his way home from work and then his train crashes and then he barely escapes, but he's bleeding. But then, and he looks
Hmm.
up and he sees the monster and he's like, oh no. And then he's like, what's going on? He tries to call his family, but he can't get a hold of them because the lines are down. He's going through the city. He sees someone who's under some rubble and he wants to help out because he's a good person. Tries to lift that person out of the rubble, pulls them out, and then he looks up and he sees a foot above him, and then the chapter just ends. And it's like that's
Hmm.
what it was like for these people on the ground, or like a building falls on them or whatever.
Yeah.
That's what it was like for these people on the ground. And so when we would get to those press conferences or people and they would say, my father is dead or my mom is dead, or maybe someone would come in and they'd be like, explain it to my husband. It would be like a picture of that guy and it'd be like, explain it to him. He's not here anymore, you heroes who are going to save us. And you would be on their side because you got to be in the shoes of a civilian. And that's what this arc does, is this one chapter, it puts you in the feet of any villain. The moment where Twice says, heroes only care about saving good citizens. That puts you in this headspace of like, oh, there are villains out there who they think like, no, I can't be saved. No one would want to help me. So I'm just going to do what I'm going to do. And that immediately does so much. And I just wish we had gotten more of that, because often when I would critique that about this later stuff, people might say, well, what do you want? You want like a whole arc? We got to move. It's like, no, give me one chapter. Give me half a chapter. Just give me time like this Twice chapter. It does wonders.
Yeah, and also I just don't like the whole, oh, we got to move. My man, why such a hurry? Like,
well, especially in My Hero, which is known for not.
Yeah, exactly. Like, why don't we just take our time, establish some stakes? It'll all be good. But yeah, the Twice chapter is fantastic. And then we get to sort of the last story beat of this arc.
Yeah, because we're not really going to talk about Mirio. We'll just save him for next. So
we just have Deku versus Bakugo. I'm going to leave this to you.
Okay, so Deku versus Bakugo used to be one of my favorite moments in the series. I think it is fantastic to have Bakugo sort of reveal how introspective he really is. Because up until this point, Bakugo has been a very superficial character. He's been kind of a character who you kind of took at face value. And he had redeeming qualities within that face value. But for the most part, you kind of just accepted his acting and his behavior as who he is. But then you get this the scuffle with Deku, where he essentially pulls off the curtain and shows you that, no, he's a kid. He's someone who suffers emotionally from the things he's experiencing. He's not immune to it just because he's loud. And I also like that all of his grievances, all of his mental anguish is very, very realistic, very reasonable. Like, it's something that you would expect him to be conflicted about. I especially love, again, praising the dub, where they add in the line, all of these thoughts they keep playing on loop, which obviously is immediately like, oh God, that's like an actual mental health thing that's going on. So I've always appreciated that. And I like that him and Deku get that rematch. And I like the way Deku sort of outsmarts him in the end with the punch. Those are all the things I still like. In hindsight, Bakugo is a character that after this moment has gotten very little actual progression. And looking at it through that lens, this moment is in of itself also not as big as the moment tries to convince you it is. Because with Bakugo, Hori has taken the slow burn character progression to an extreme at which it barely counts as progression to me. Because we get all this narration, all of these other characters saying, oh, he's grown so much. He has become so thoughtful of others. And then you cut to him actually like existing. And it's always just yelling, screaming, insulting people, being pretty much just as mean as he used to be.
Are you talking about in like modern MHA or
yes, modern MHA, modern MHA currently? But it's something that's consistent throughout all of his progression, wherein people will tell you that he's progressed, but then you actually get to see him in action, and that progression only exists within narration. He himself doesn't feel like a different character. And I used to think that, oh, it's a slow burn. Like, we're going to get to see him gradually mellow out after this point. But he never does. He's still just as abrasive as he used to be. We now just get more internal monologues of him going, oh, I actually kind of like my classmates, which is appreciated, but I wish we would have done more with it, especially when you have a character that is so extreme. Everyone's hung up on when he tells Deku to go kill himself in the first chapter. But I really do think that a character like him needed to really mellow out and become more of a just regular person. And because of that, it makes his entire journey feel less impactful to me, because it just feels like I'm being gaslit into thinking he's changed. Because he really, he hasn't. On a purely functional level, his relationship with Deku has progressed from "I will kill you, you nerd" to "I will kill you, you nerd, but you better stand up to me first." Which, that's fine as a microprogression. But we're at the end of the series. I want more. I wanted more. I wanted there to be actual acknowledgement between the two. And that's also where a fundamental question arises in me. One that at the time I didn't think about, but now just doesn't let me go. Why did Deku have to lose again against Bakugo? What does that actually accomplish? Because he already gets like his victory moment, and then Bakugo sort of snaps it away from him. His loss doesn't really catalyze him into anything new or interesting. He just goes, "Oh, I have to grow even further, I guess." It isn't like a big lynch.
We're not going to get like a rematch, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we're not going to get a rematch. And I get that in this fight, winning or losing wasn't the point. The point was communicating through the fight, which that was done very well. I do like that. But it just feels lame in the sense that, okay, we had this big moment. You even have a chapter called Deku versus Kachan Part 2. And then it just ends the exact same way it did the first time, where Deku loses, but he impresses Bakugo, which is the exact same thing that happened in the first fight. And it's just frustrating to me because it highlights that Hori seems to be incredibly hesitant of actually pulling the trigger on anything Bakugo related. Because Bakugo doesn't change. He doesn't really grow in his relationship with Deku outside of being marginally kinder and marginally more willing to cooperate with him. But even there, it's still filtered throughout this character of, oh, I'm yelly and I'm mean and I'm rude and I'm aggressive and I tell you to go die. And it's sort of like, yes, obviously he's not going to change overnight. But this chapter was the chapter I caught up on, like in 2017. And Bakugo hasn't changed. And it's just weird to me.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, it's weird to me. And in hindsight, it makes this weaker. Because just like with the Uraraka shit, it predicates itself on being the setup for a slow burn, but eventually important development. And that development never came. We're just always stuck in that slow burn. So yeah, that's why in hindsight, I think this reread of this fight made me like Bakugo less, which is a huge shame.
So okay. So then I'll ask you some questions because for me, like I was just kind of like, oh, it's okay. Like it was a good fight. I enjoyed the things about it that I enjoyed. But Bakugo was never like a big fave. So what I'll do is I'll be the audience surrogate and I'll say, but what about? And we'll see what your thoughts are. I don't really have any deep thoughts about it other than about this fight, other than cool detail. Deku throughout the whole fight, he keeps like his arms up, like in the air, because again, he doesn't have his gauntlets on, and there's just a very tiny detail. But every time he jumps, like he doesn't have them in like a fighting position. He has them like up in the air, like so that they can't be hit. And this is like consistent throughout most of the fight every time he moves, and so I just think that's just a fun little detail of like him protecting his arms, because like yeah, they're fully exposed. So he just kind of keeps them up, and that's a cool little detail. Anyway, so I would say from the audience perspective, but Oceans, what about the scene where he gathers all the friends and he has a very calm conversation with Deku? Do you not count that as progression?
I would, and I think it's a great scene. It's very appreciated. The problem is the same as it is with this fight, where, yeah, for that scene, a progressed Bakugo exists, but we just go back to him being his usual self immediately afterwards. Okay. And that scene feels like it has, just like this one, less impact on who Bakugo is as it should have, because it's a great thing that you bring up, because just like with this fight, his apology to Deku and his rescue of Deku should fundamentally change the way they interact. I do genuinely believe that you cannot have a heart-to-heart with someone without it affecting the way you talk to them. And it just never does for Bakugo. So while that moment is appreciated, absolutely, I don't think it saves Bakugo in any regard. If anything, it's just a further symptom of the issue.
Okay. So let me see if I got this right, because I think I get it now. Because I just want that was my kind of little key question. So I would say it seems like to you, it's less about, because like it's like Bakugo is changing internally. He feels these things towards these people that he did not feel before, and in certain moments he can express that. Whereas to you, you're more looking at the what feels undercooked to you is like, all right, cool, that's great that you feel that way internally, but actions matter, and your consistent actions practically, like when I'm just reading you, is that you are just old Bakugo. Whereas if you, so it's like yeah, Bakugo has changed. We have scenes that provably show that he has changed in terms of like the culture festival. He never would have. This is a good comparison. In the room contest, he wouldn't do it, but in the culture festival, he does do it. And he has this kind of little moment where, in his Bakugo way, he expresses to the class that like, we're not losers, we're cool, we're heroes. Let's kick their ass with music. And he's in his own way standing up for this class. However, I guess it seems like to you, it's like, all right, but the in his own way part should have shifted by now, because at the end of the day, Bakugo, you need to like be an adult and know that it's not about you, and that you're not just allowed to act however you want, and people just have to go, well, his intentions are good, so it's fine.
Yeah.
By the end of since we're in the final battle, you would have liked at this point for him to just kind of be the character he is when he is able to have a heart-to-heart, right? Is that kind of the idea?
Yes.
So it's like, so it's like, sure, Hori can say all he wants he's changed and provably show it to you, but in a practical sense, he has not changed, as far as just reading Bakugo.
Yes.
And so I think for some people, they might say, okay, well, if you do that, then you've changed Bakugo. I like Bakugo. He's loud and aggressive. It's like, no. Here's how you easily fix this. He can still be that when he's fighting bad guys.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all you have to do. Just make him talk normally to the people he should, because that's a thing that, regardless of his age, especially since he's grown so much, by the end of his life, he should not be doing this anymore. I would hope not. Like, we can't just go tee hee ha ha. He's yelling at children or whatever.
Yeah,
that sort of thing. Oh, and that's another great example. The babysitting arc. He's able to kind of at the very end mellow out and come to this conclusion.
Yes, that's wonderful.
Yeah, but like you're saying, in the practical moment to moment, he's really loud. So it's like, yeah, all you'd have to do is just, we're in the final stretch anyway. So if you wanted to keep this, what I would do is, once he has his conversation with Deku, you have to get rid of his moment to moment die nerd die yelly bang bang attitude for normal conversations. He should just be competent normal. And I think that would be cool. I think most people would be like impressed by this. Like, wow, Bakugo is just giving good advice. He's just talking to people. Maybe he has some banter, you know?
Yeah.
And that would just be enjoyable and likable. And then when he gets into the final battle and he's fighting Shigaraki, then he's talking all that crap. Then he's going off. Then he's saying, die, you fool. I'll kill you. You know, that kind of thing. And then you can contrast to, like, he's in the battle and he might be like, Sensei, do a cool combo with me. Yeah, you know, something like that. And then I would say the final thing that I think, I'm psychoanalyzing you, Mr. Ocean Man. I hope I'm doing okay.
Absolutely.
The final thing I would say is that I think a big problem, and this is a big thing that I don't like about modern MHA, is that everybody has become, besides Bakugo, has become, ooh, woo, baby, we love saving people. Let's go. We love forgiveness. We love being heroes. We love being kind. We love encouraging speeches. And I think that what's being annoying is it feels like the story's like talking down to you, because now we're getting even more of these, Bakugo's really changed. Bakugo's so cool. Bakugo's the best. Bakugo's the #1 character in the popularity polls. Bakugo's the greatest. Oh my gosh, I love Bakugo. I love my friends. Oh! and so I think it feels even worse, because if it was just like you finish the series, and then, because I think if you finish the series and Bakugo was like this, right? If Hori didn't change anything, he just ditched all those internal monologues from the other characters, I think you would leave the series going, Bakugo has changed, because the big moments where he's normal would stick out to you. But because we have all these other people who factually would not be involved in those moments, they would be watching him be nice to Deku. They would be watching him, XYZ, or they wouldn't be around for when he's talking to kids. Why are they saying, oh, he's so different, he's changed, when he's still talking crap to you?
Yeah. And
so it just feels like it's just like talking down to you. It's like, no, Hori, I can read.
Yeah. And I think it also comes down to the fact that we have an example of a character who can shift his entire behavior and be much more likable for it, and that's Todoroki. Because compare how he spoke before Sports Festival to how he does afterwards, where his you're not on my level. Get out of my way kind of
He's so humble
attitude.
and kind. Yeah.
Yeah. But more importantly, his like social awkwardness is played up. And so his what was once this cold distance is turned into, gee, I don't know. Okay, I guess we're hanging out now. And it's fun and it makes him likable. And you could have done something easily like that with Bakugo. In fact, to a certain extent, it is done where his threats and his yelling are kind of taken as, oh, Bakugo.
I was going to ask you. Yep.
Yeah. But the problem with that, obviously, is that that is an external reframing. That is other people reacting to him differently. It's not him changing and sort of sublimating his character in a way that is more palatable to his friends. Because to me, I think Bakugo should be, at this point in the story, Bakugo should be the way he is when Deku and him are sweeping the floors after a fight, where he's helpful if asked, he's direct, he's to the point, and there's still that tinge of like crassness to it. Like he doesn't say your punch was good. He says your punch kind of pissed me off. Like it's not rude, it's not loud, it's still absolutely Bakugo.
How he speaks. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just such a shame because I feel like I know where Hori's going with Bakugo at this point. I think that once Bakugo has stopped jobbing against Shigaraki, and Deku's here to save him, Bakugo is going to get the Vegeta speech at the end of Dragon Ball Z, where he will be, oh, Deku, our journey together was so long, but now I acknowledge you. And that will be the only time we get that. And that's a shame. I think Bakugo would have been a much better character if the things the series tells us change him actually visibly changed him outside of key moments. Because the thing with Todoroki is he's not just changed when he is supposed to have a big moment, he has changed all of the time. He's one of the funniest characters in MHA now, because anytime someone asks him a question, he's like, my smile kills people?
My smile kills women? Uh-oh. Yeah. Spaghetti-o.
Yeah, like he's funny now because what was once this cold distance has been turned into a genuine awkwardness. And with Baku, we could have done something similar, again, differently to what is currently being done with like OU. So yeah, that's my stance.
Sorry, yeah, that's kind of that's your point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. To one more question for you, it would just simply be: do you not feel he has already acknowledged Deku? Why in the point where he says, "I'm sorry, Midoriya," or Izuku? Does that not count for you, or are you thinking like a different sort of acknowledgement?
I think that is. I definitely think. I think it'd be stupid not to count that as acknowledgement because it literally is. Yeah. And it's something that needed to happen between the two. But again, I don't just want like the acknowledgement in the big moments. I want it to be something tangible between the two, like a respect.
In the moment to moment.
Yeah. Like like this knowledge that, oh, I can rely on you, Deku, and you can rely on me. Because they get like this moment or this section in the war arc, in the Paranormal Liberation War, where they're sort of hanging out together. And that would be the moment where, like, they would be relying on each other. But instead, the whole joke is, again, Bakugo going, oh, Deku, don't go in my way, I will kill you. And Deku going, hey, don't be mean to me. And under the surface, of course, you can argue that they're more comfortable talking to each other. But to me, that's just not enough at this point. Especially now, again, with the knowledge that we're at the end. Like, if My Hero had another 3 years left, I'd be fine. Because then I'd be like, okay, they can still develop, you can still do it. But it doesn't. My Hero has a year left at most. So, yeah. It's just one of those things, again, where the fact that it is ending is just turning my issue with it up to 11.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, anyway, I guess that's the end of this discussion.
Yes,
what a positive high note to end on.
The actual fight between the two is fucking amazing in the anime. Besides the music blunder.
Yeah, I mean, even then they still pick good music, but they could have chose the best music. There's that. I like the little detail about Deku. I like their conversation with All Might. Yeah, no, and in the manga it looks really great too. Like the way the explosions are drawn and kind of like the dynamic attacks. Super dope, super fun. You heard it here first, folks. Ocean's Bakugo video redacted completely.
Yeah, I said what I said at the time. It's only in hindsight that it sucks.
No. Alrighty. Well, next time though, we will be talking. Oh wait, let's give it a rating. So my rating for the arc, I would give it a 5. It is an arc where I wouldn't read it normally on my own, but if I'm rereading through the arc or through My Hero as a whole, I ain't skipping it. You know, it's got good stuff in it that I like, good stuff with the characters. It's got some fun moments with the class. It's got some frustrating moments too. So it's just a flat decent for me. That's all I got to say about that. What about you?
Yeah, I think 5 feels almost a little too generous to me. I feel like 4.5. Yeah, because that dodgeball section is not good.
Well, in on my scale, a 4 means like it had good ideas, but it disappointed me. So that would definitely count for Bakugo.
yeah. So I think 4.5 out of 10. It's fine. It's all right, but it's definitely the first arc of the series, I think, chronologically, that really misses the mark for me in most of its aspects, aside from the summer, not the summer camp, the exam arc that we have. Yeah, that's the worst. But honestly, that one's fine in the anime. Like if you're watching, if you're an anime watcher, this one, License Exam, is the first arc that's gonna suck. Also because it has 2 filler episodes, which are both bad.
Oh yeah.
And because that's when the animation tanks, it's when the music direction starts falling apart. It's just an odd. I mean, the fucking opening for this section in the anime has a filler character in it that never appears.
Oh, that made me so mad. I was speculating, so a little behind the scenes in Ian's brain. I was like going through and I used to chart out like how many episodes they would have to adapt. And like in my head, I was like, okay, well, if they adapt this much, blah, 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 they have these filler characters. Wait, that means there's very possible chance we could get a filler about Uraraka doing something. And I was like, we haven't seen this character yet. They've got to show up, right? And like we were getting into the save the civilian phase, and I'm like, oh man, he's gonna like show up maybe, and we'll have like a mini boss, you know, that the characters are like, oh yes, and he just never appears.
Yeah. It's so annoying too because it's such a distinct character design as well. You know, with
the
sharp
shots, it's like he's got a big toothy grin.
Yeah, but no, this is where I think the series starts dipping a little. Obviously catches itself again with Overhaul and Culture Festival, and honestly doesn't dip again until a little in Joint Training and then a Laudel in Villain Hunt. But we'll get to all of that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But yeah, no, next time. So next time we'll be talking about the Overhaul arc. So here's what we need to decide. So this was like 15, 16, 17 chapters, like less than 20. And we have been talking for an hour and a half. Overhaul is 40.
Yes, but I would say that in Overhaul,
we have like big sweeping points.
Yeah, exactly, because it's not like it's a 40 chapter series. It's a 40 chapter arc, but it's not 40 chapters worth of singular events, right? Like you have sort of the lead up, you have the beginning of the raid, you have the middle of the raid, and then you have the end. So I think it should be fine if we do it in one video.
Yeah, at the worst, it'll be another 3-hour big boy like the war.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, in that case, do you want to again plug some stuff on your way out?
Yeah. So first of all, I want to plug my channel. I'm IanWaffles. You can find me on Twitter and YouTube. I want to clarify a point, which is that my big I want the time with the civilian who gets crushed by Gigantomachia. That it was stolen by my friend Rexor, which you can find on YouTube. I don't know if Ocean's okay with this. We might put his channel in the description because he's actually starting like a new series where he's going to be doing like videos every other day. So I want to plug him. But he makes really great content. He talks about MHA. He's on the right side of history. He's seen the downfall and he's been predicting it.
Wonderful.
But he's talking about cool stuff, talking about social media, League of Legends, all that kind of stuff. So it's really good. But he came up with the idea and I stole it and I did not credit him yet, so I got to credit him now. But yeah, no, otherwise, since we're going to be talking about Overhaul, again, I have a video on Overhaul and I still stand by everything I said in that video, and one for Airy, and I still stand by all that. I still think they're very enjoyable and hopefully very informative, because I know that Overhaul is a character and Airy is a character. That's why I made them. They're characters who I think are a little bit misunderstood. So we're going to be going into the Overhaul arc. It's going to be dope. It's going to be awesome. And hopefully it will be soon, because we miraculously got this one out quick. So
Exactly. So anyway, everyone, thank you so much for watching / listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we will see you next time for the overhaul arc. Take care.
Take care.